Thank you. Welcome to the Wind Turbine and Alternative Energy Committee meeting. And it's 5 p.m. We have all our members present and one guest at the moment. Adam Burney is also present as our advisor. And we have quite a few items on the agenda tonight. So as we go through the different items, I'd like to just have us go through and make our comments on it. Then get our advisor's advice on it, Mr. Burney, and then go for any comments from the citizens. And if we have a discussion after that, that's okay too. Or if you want to make a motion or something like that, because it could be a long agenda otherwise. First, we have minutes. Let's take the minutes from March 13th first. If anyone has any changes, omissions, or deletions you'd like to make in those, I'll give you a minute to read it. Does anyone need more time? Good. Okay, those present at that meeting were myself, Jeff Mitchell, Tim Fleming, and Nancy. Are there any changes you'd like to make? Any additions or deletions?
I did fix the typo down the bottom.
Beautiful, thank you.
Okay, what,
Yes,
let's see.
March 13th.
Yeah. Motion by Tim to adjourn the meeting. Motion second by Jack. I wasn't here.
Oh. Okay, let me check. This is March.
Yeah.
The only J, the J would
J
be
would
me.
be you,
So it
Jeff.
must have been me.
Must have been Jeff.
What's wrong with it?
Duly noted. I'll fix that and forward that one on.
Okay, all those in favor, raise your hands, please. It's unanimous. Let's take the minutes now for June 10th. I think there was one down under the bullet that says Dave mentioned why the Met Tower, if you have any changes or additions. I think we're supposed to pass on to Adam, ask Julie if it's okay to keep it up.
Oh, okay. I didn't, that wasn't in my
Check with
notes,
her,
but I can
Adam.
add it.
Keep the Met Tower
Met
up?
Tower
No,
up.
we don't, I think he was worried about any any liabilities with it still being up there. In other words, do you want it, Dave? Do you remember what you said on that?
Yeah, I had some concerns with why it's still there if they're not getting any data out of it anymore. Is it a liability to the town?
Well, they're continuing to collect data.
Oh,
And
okay, I wasn't aware of that.
it's not costing the town any money. The idea was that they've collected data to the point that they sent it off to Wind Resources to produce the feasibility study. The tower continues to collect data by product of being there. And because it has the IPAC, which is sending it cellular, over cellular waves to SED, they continue to collect the data, and they can take it down, but if they continue to collect data, if it comes time the town decides they wish to move forward, additional data is additional data, and it allows for maybe a better design, orientation, that kind of thing, if the town chooses to move forward.
Makes sense.
So we should add that in there, that you wanted Julie to be asked?
Yeah. And I'll put in this week's that Adam explained why he asked.
Beautiful. The new person coming, Dave, would you pass that to Wayne? Not a very good throw. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Are there any other additions or deletions? The only point I was trying to make on the electric bill was it was 7 cents a kilowatt.
Okay.
Because that's a pretty good price.
Okay.
If we could put that in there, and
7 cents per kilowatt.
yeah, that's a nice price. I think in the years to come, we'll be paying a lot more than that. And, anything else on this one? Any other concerns, additions or deletions? Okay, all in favor, raise your hands.
I'll abstain, I wasn't here.
Yes, Jack Backus to David and Nancy. There were 5 people voting Nancy.
2, 3.
Okay, we'll move to the next item on the agenda, planners report. Adam, do you have anything news for us, or?
No, we're trying to nail down a date to have SED come and present to the selectmen, and when I have it, I will let you all know.
Great, and what, do you have any idea of how you want to utilize the committee in that regard?
Well, I mean, the report was produced for the committee as it was produced for the town with the guidance of the committee. I would hope that the committee or a representative would be there to show support. The more, the better. And I see that you're voting to take a position on the report, so I would hope that that would be reflected in the attendance and whatever report is given at that time. Essentially, really, what SED is coming is to say, this is what we did, this is how we did it, and this is what our results were. So if the committee is in support of that, then it would be beneficial for, again, members of or a representative from the committee to be there.
I personally think we should invite everyone, should know when it's happening.
Oh, yeah,
So they
and
will get
yes.
an email to that effect?
Yes, and when I say I will inform you, I'm speaking in the royal you of the members of the committee.
And we're not in any violation of open meeting law by all being there at the same.
No, as long as you are not deliberating or taking a vote, you don't even need to post a meeting.
Great.
If you're there to show support, that's not a necessary posting under the new open meeting law.
Great.
Should there be a letter from the committee as well? A letter in support of?
It's up to you, the committee. You can make whatever proposals you like, yeah. Absolutely.
That way they'll have it in front of them, as well as
Sure.
the members being
That's a
there.
great idea. Nothing else under the, okay.
No.
Let's go right to number 3 then. Committee's position on the final report, wind study from SED. And as I said before, to facilitate the movement of it, we'll just go right around the group. And if you feel comfortable, if you don't feel comfortable, just tell us why at this point, how you feel about the questions you have or support of, or how. And would you like to go first?
No, I read the report, went through it, and it pretty much covered everything I wanted to see with the report. And then I don't want to get ahead of myself, but then moving into some of these other things that I received last week. There were some concerns there that we definitely have to look into. But aside from that, the information they did give me answered all my questions.
I wasn't here for the presentation at the last, or the discussion at the last meeting, so I'm kind of at a loss as far as information, as far as that goes.
It's on the website, right? It's,
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
right.
At this point, I don't think I'll take an actual position. I mean,
Okay,
I'm not
this-
negative by any means, but...
Right. This is one of the things that I mentioned at the last meeting is, this is the report.
Right, yeah, you can't print it, obviously.
This is the report, okay? So it took a long time to develop it, a long time to collect the information. A lot of a lot of engineers worked on it. And I didn't know if the 2 weeks was enough time for everyone to read it. Because we have summer vacations, we've got family responsibilities, all sorts of things at this time of year. But the people present said that 2 weeks was enough time to read the report. I didn't have time to go into anything else. The stuff that brought to you, I didn't have a chance to look at it. I'll be reading it this weekend. There are are some concerns that were brought up and some were answered. You may find that they'll be answered as the meeting goes on, and you may want to come back to
Right,
this.
that's what I'd like to do, if you don't
Okay,
mind.
yeah. All set? Dave?
I thought the report was pretty thorough. There's a lot of details and a lot of information in there. I still have some questions that I think when we just get into a discussion later, I think they can be clarified. Whether going forward, I'm not sure. My own feeling is I think would be assuming a lot of risk, you know, with a project like this. That I think I don't know whether it's worth the town's, you know, money to put into the risk that might be associated with this at this point. But I think there's a lot of questions that we still have to talk about, a lot of issues we need to talk about.
Well, you know, ask those questions.
Yeah, I will.
Nancy?
Dave has kind of said everything that I kind of wanted to say. The report was great. It was very thorough. You know, I mean, I didn't understand a lot of it, but, you know, I mean, it gave us the gist of everything that's going on. But I did have questions, but I see they're going to be covered later on in our meeting, so.
Well, I don't know, is this something
My questions.
that you wanted SED to come back and answer?
SED to answer?
Right.
No, I don't think that's something that we have to have SED back to do.
They're not technical questions.
No.
I mean, I think, you know, ask question. I mean, I think there's a lot more, you know, is everything positive? No, but I think there's a lot more positives than negatives. And I mean, you got, people didn't want to, you know, back when I was a kid, I mean, you know, space travel, you know, I mean, there were a lot of people opposed to space travel. A lot of people opposed, you know, shooting up satellites, putting a man on the moon and stuff like that. Well, you know, you can't be opposed to everything. And like, you know, this, you know, book here on the, you know, the negative side. Well, I mean, you got stuff in there like, you know, the town of Duxbury, you know, voted down a wind turbine project. Well, the wind was 5.3 to 5.5 miles per hour. I mean, if the wind here was 5.3 to 5.5, I would definitely vote down, you know, I mean, you know, I mean, this isn't, I just figure this isn't all it's, you know, it's cracked up to. You know, anybody can look at everything from one side. Maybe I'm looking at that, you know, strictly from one side and this from one side, but I just think that there's a lot more positives in there than negatives, and I would definitely like to go see the project going forward.
Great. I thought SED did a thorough job. I've read a lot of other studies in other towns. I know that Holy Cross wanted a wind turbine, and they didn't have enough wind. I know Millbury wanted a wind turbine, and they didn't have enough wind. I know that Leicester had a successful report, and they had enough wind, but it wasn't a flight path from Worcester Airport. Oxford, I don't really think has enough wind. There are parts of Shrewsbury, but they're basically overdeveloped now. You couldn't even have a fall zone there. And right now, there are $700,000, $800,000, $900,000 homes there where you can't put a wind turbine there if you don't have a proper fall zone plus 10%. So I think Auburn has something special here. And I think for the taxpayers, I hear a lot of people complaining that their taxes are going up. And yes, they are going up every year. We've got a lot of good projects that are raising my taxes all the time. And I was a teacher, and I know what happens every year. As you go up in pay grade, you're going to have money come up, and you're going to be raising taxes. Now, this project over 20 years relieves taxes by $2 million. I can't turn my back on that. That to me is a significant amount of money. And as far as risk goes, this land is basically, if you look at the maps, There's an awful lot of wetlands there. There's an awful lot of ledge there. It's not bringing any tax money in now. And I think if you put a wind turbine up, it doesn't really take up that huge of a footprint when you're talking about, I don't know how many acres are up there, Adam, altogether, approximately.
Well, it's 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces of land, and the one that the Met Tower is on, I think, is 30 or 35 acres. And then I think all told it's probably close to 100.
Wow. And
But that's a guess. I mean, we could look it up.
right, I mean, just to look at we had a little bit of some trouble building an access road up there. So this property itself isn't going to bring in tax dollars in the future. It's not going to bring in anything. And I think you've got to be realistic. Every year we're not going to have new growth at $600,000. There's going to come a time when we may have no new growth. And when this starts kicking in, it pays for itself, including the loan on it. And then it starts coming in with income for the town. When that happens, the town's going to be, I think, in need of having some income. And if it's $250,000 a year, I think it's going to be precious money. I think costs, as we all know, are all going up. And the workers work hard. They deserve cost of living raises. That's a cost of living adjustments. It's not really a raise if it's just for cost of living. So I think the wind turbine is a good project. I'm comfortable, but then again, my prejudice is I started the research 10 years ago. And the question was, did we have enough wind? Now I'm satisfied. We have more than enough wind. We have more than twice as much as Duxbury has. If I were voting on 5.5 miles per hour, I'd vote it down too. This is a resource. The good part about it is if you act or don't act, you can use it in the future. But I say act now. It's been going on long enough. We presently have done 3 studies on this area. The first one was done by the UMass professors. They came to the conclusion that you could put a 900 kilowatt wind turbine up there without any further study. They said it was one of the best sites that they had seen in New England. They loved it. One of the abutters even took us up there, took me up on his tractor. He loved the idea of having a wind turbine there. The second report was done by the WPI students, and they also came up with the same answers and answers for flicker and for income for the town. So, you know, I just can't turn down over a period of 20 years $2 million in tax relief. Most of the projects coming in that I see on my tax bill are all good projects, but they're costing me hundreds of dollars every year. And I'll pay it. I don't have any kids in the schools, but I'll pay for the middle school. I'm still paying for the high school. I'm going to pay for Bay Path, another trash collection bill. The elderly's income doesn't go up. People in Social Security, their income doesn't go up. It's only when you're in the workforce that you have a chance to raise your pay. So to help those people out, I think we need projects like this. They're at the end of their work career. Many of them, most people at my age can't work at all. I'm lucky, I still have a part-time job, so I can earn extra money and pay for the tax raises. But for a lot of people, they're hurting, and this type of a project would help them out. I don't think it'd help the town employees though, too. It'd also put us on the map, something unique. I look upon the wind turbine as a symbol of energy independence. And when I go to the bottom of Millbrook Street every day, I look over at Holy Name's wind turbine, and it inspires me. And I notice it faces in a different direction every day. And it really is something that I think helps the youth of America as good stewards for our country. And I'll drop that and not go on my horse on that anymore. But I could go on that one, in the way it works for national defense and a lot of other things. Anyway, that's my position. Any questions, or anyone wanted to add to that? Okay, we'll open it up to, Rick probably has something to say.
I do.
Rick, would you just identify yourself, your address?
Sure, Rick Ringard, 288 South Street, Precinct 1.
Thank you.
Just to, it wasn't my question, but just to mention Holy Name. SED sent you a letter back in April and indicated in there that I think you had asked them for other projects that they had done, what they projected for kilowatt hours, what actually came about. Holy Name, their projection was about a third less, it's producing about a third less than what they said. So my question would be, as we go through, one of the things on that particular subject, as we go through this, I think you need to, when you say you're going to save $2 million a year, you need to know that their projection has to be right to save that. The other issue is...
Could I address that issue?
Sure.
I read that number too, and I'm not sure, and I don't think that they did count what they spent on electricity. So one of the reasons we had Mrs. Reardon in here, and who was the president of Holy Name at the time, and or what we would call a principal in the public schools, and she explained that they just wanted to cover the cost of the electricity for their high school. And when I read those figures that he gave us, I wrote down one of my questions is that after you pay the electric bill, and that's not clear on what he said, and needs to be clarified by him. So I don't know if I can accept at this point that that's $40,000 clearly, because I think that's after the electric bill was paid, which is about $100,000 a year.
That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about what SED put in a letter. They said they had projected,
Yes.
I think, $1 million, here it is right here. It was almost exactly 67% is what they were actually producing. Here it is. They had projected $1,133,000, and it's actually, I'm sorry, $1,034,000, it's actually producing $700,000. So that would have a major effect going down. The other part of the Holy Name thing that we need to keep in mind is the breakdown on these things. And it can be substantial. Holy Name has had numerous breakdowns with this. Difficulty getting parts. If you look on the Holy Name website, October of last year, they posted a thing where they actually had to fire the company doing their operation and maintenance because they just couldn't get this thing fixed. And they'd bring parts in from overseas, couldn't get them through customs. So there's a huge amount of variables in every one of these. You can't, just because we see it, doesn't mean that it's working correctly. The other good way...
May I, before we go on,
Sure.
Can I address that? That was one of the things we talked about with SED, and if members of the committee remember, I brought up 9/11. 9/11 changed everything, and what happened is that you used to be able to fly parts from other parts of the country. Well, if they were on the watch list, it was taken off. And that's one of the things I wanted to prevent when we got a wind turbine, is that you can get parts quickly, and you don't have to wait 30 days, and I know how they had to wait for parts. Part of that had to go by, one part I think had to go by ship, instead of being flown in, which is ridiculous. And that's part of 9/11. That's something that SCD, I believe, took care of in this company, because if I looked at it, we know that there are over 700,000 wind turbines in existence in the world. If I had a bunch of papers like this on complaints on 700,000 cars, I would believe there are going to be that many complaints when you have 700,000 items of anything. But the wind turbine parts are a big issue, and I think it's addressed partially in that in Pennsylvania they're going to have a parts replacement for this particular Gamesa. And also, there are over, I think, 4,000 of these already in existence. That was one of our worries, is that if you go to a brand new company, 2 years from now, they could be out of business.
Actually, there's 9,400 of these running.
Altogether?
Yeah.
So if you, it's even more. But if you go and you don't have a lot of items out there, like a lot of Priuses, they won't make parts for them, and they won't keep them on the shelves. This company isn't going to go out of business. It's got an awful, it's a successful company in many continents.
Is that one American made?
Parts, none is completely American made. I think they're made in different parts of.
Okay, because in the report that Jack sent me, I did read the one in regard to Princeton with the problems they were having up there. That was kind of alarming to me, and I didn't know if you have the information on who made the Holy Name one, whether that was...
That was Vestas.
Okay. And are they around to warranty this item?
Determined, yeah.
Or you said they're having problems with all the warranties up there?
I think, their unit is 5 years old now, and I've not talked to them, but according to this, I could read the whole thing to you if you
No,
want.
that's...
It's more whoever was doing the operation and maintenance.
Okay.
It's the one they were really having the problem with.
Okay.
But there's there are other towns that have gone through the same thing. Portsmouth, Rhode Island is the same thing. They've got 2 of them. Things haven't run in months.
Yeah.
And just can't, and they're out of business. the
Yeah,
company that made that.
as
So,
was the company in Princeton, correct?
yeah.
Yeah, that was very alarming to me.
You know, you gotta be aware of that. And Gamester, they're the fourth largest manufacturer, but they've had their tough times too. And if you look at their website, their activity report, over in Europe they call it an activity report instead of an annual report, they're not without problems. And I'm not saying they're not a very healthy company, they are a very healthy company, but they took a big bite in 2012. They've cut back a lot of people and a lot of locations in getting themselves rated again. I'm not saying that's not what you shouldn't be doing. I'm just saying it isn't the greatest, it isn't, don't take it on face value that GameSA is perfect.
Oh, I wouldn't expect that of any company, but that's one of the things that we emphasized with SED. I mean, before I bought my Prius, I called every Toyota dealership in New England. And I don't know about this, which company made the one in Rhode Island, if it's this company. I'd really like to keep talking about things that this company did, or this particular model. And the reason for that, Rick, is, if you follow my logic, is that when I went out to buy a car, if I decided which car I wanted, I'm not going to read the reports on other cars like the Jeep with the gas engines exploding, because that's not the car I'm buying. I wanted to know everything about my Prius, and everything I found out was good. So I basically want to know about this particular type of wind turbine. If any of your reports complain about this particular one, not about this Jeep that I'm not buying, they were thinking about buying this one, not a Cadillac or anything else.
Well, this is a feasibility study. I think,
Right.
correct me if I'm wrong, this thing is
Oh,
going to
right.
have to be designed. You're going to have to hire a designer
Well,
separately,
right.
and it may not be this turbine that you end up with,
Well, that would be up to the town ultimately.
whether they want to name it as a proprietary item.
Correct.
Correct. It's not necessarily.
Oh, no, it's certainly not required, and, I think that it would be up to town administration to determine if they felt that this was certainly the item they wanted to go with, and if they wanted to name it proprietary,
Right.
and put it in the RFP that the designer will use this in conjunction with the site, and all of the fun stuff that goes along with that. You know what that's like.
And obviously, SED is a games to deal with.
Yeah, but I think that what would happen is they would essentially be taken out of the loop as far as bidding on the installation of this. They would be hired by the town as clerk of the works and represent the town through the process of installation, as opposed to being someone who's bidding on the installation based on a report that they did. So they would continue to work for us to supervise the installation, ensure that it's done in the right way and it goes through the proper process. We certainly don't intend to take their report and then put out a bid that they're open to bid on based on a report that they wrote. That seems sort of counterproductive,
Good.
from my opinion.
That makes me feel very good to hear that.
Because we also want somebody to represent us that knows about this. I mean, we have a great town engineer. I think if we plopped a set of wind turbine drawings in front of him, he'd go, huh?
Sure.
You know, it's not a road drawing, it's not something he's familiar with. So they've installed these all over the country. They have a familiarity with how it works. So,
Actually, they've only put up one of these.
no, I'm sorry, I don't mean Gamesa, I mean wind turbines in general.
Right.
So they have experience in the industry, in the sector, and that would give us the ability to have somebody who understands this process represent us and give us adequate advice.
Yep.
I just hope that you understand my logic on when I critique what you hand us. I haven't read the package only because I haven't had time. It's this weekend. For
Well,
my
I'd like to at some point just go over that, maybe at the end of your meeting, just so that everybody understands what's in that package. But to get back to your original question, if I have any comments on...
If I could just finish the thought that I was saying, and then we'll go back
Sure.
to you. I hope that you understand what I'm saying with my logic, is that if I'm buying the Gamesa, that's like my buying the Prius. I don't care about the research on Vestas if they had trouble, because I want to know what this company's troubles were. And if you can point those out to me, you're going to really perk my ears up. I don't care what happened to a Cadillac. I don't care that they're going to have to recall 400,000 Jeeps because the rear engines explode. I'm concerned with my Prius. And if I get good news on that, or some of the good news I got was that the big battery is replaceable for $400 on a used basis. The engine is too, and if you run into good news like that on this particular topic, if I want to see any criticisms really directed at this, since this study is mentioning this one, let's really criticize this one. And if you come up with something, my ears are going to open up wide. But on the other hand, you know a lot about the building trade. So if you mention something to me, like you did earlier, in getting parts, my ears are wide open. Because I'm very concerned with getting parts. And have been, the committee has heard me speak to it in the past. And I would prefer to buy American made too. Unfortunately, these parts, these are made all over the world, you know. And a couple of the major parts are made in the United States, which is good. And I'm sorry.
To get back to
Yes.
your original question, and I apologize for going on a little bit, but could you go over the section on economic analysis? There's 4 or 5 different charts there, and they're a little bit difficult to follow. What is he saying in there?
Which page are we talking about?
It looks like 9.2
10-3.
9.3.
9293.
Yeah, keep going down though, because he's talking about 9.2.
Oh,
And which did you have a question on?
Well, actually, the whole calculation, I mean, it appears there's 3 or 4 different scenarios here that he's getting to a number, and you quoted the number of $2 million or something. I'm just wondering where that...
Over $2 million and a 20-year lifetime projected. That's after you've subtracted the cost of the turbine and the cost of construction. It was anywhere, I think it was 2,100,000 to 2,300,000 is what their projection was, if my memory is serving me correctly. These numbers, I wanted to have Ed Kasanovich go over and look at in detail. That was one of the questions that I have, because I have a feeling that 2 weeks wasn't enough time for this committee to read this report.
So which one of the charts are you going by?
Through the chair?
Yes, sir.
Are you talking about chart 9.3 that has the 0, the 2.5, and the
Yeah, it's
4.05?
9.2. It starts with 9...
Yeah, I'm talking.
Oh, no,
I'm sorry.
no,
Figure
not-
9.3.
No, I don't. I think there was
It's
numbers figuring it out at the
It's
very
actually
end.
9.2, 9.3, 9.4, 9.5, 9.6. That's it. There's a whole series of different charts.
Okay. Well,
Which one are we looking at?
all of them.
I'm just trying to understand what that whole section is.
Well, they represent different things. This is unleveraged. So 9.2 would be if the town pays for everything up front, out of pocket, no borrowing. This is our lifetime savings, and this is, you know, the absolute best case scenario. Then if we go down,
Lifetime
yes.
savings?
Well, lifetime
20
being
years.
20 years.
20 years.
Okay,
Because they can only estimate the lifetime of the turbine as 20 years. History says that the real life of them is between 25 and 50, depending on maintenance, climate, use, a whole variety of different things. So they base everything on 20 years because that's what the industry has deemed the lifetime.
And Adam, since this is being filmed, that savings on that best scenario was
2.7 million.
0.7.
$2,700,000.
what
So-
is
so-
MPV?
I would have to go back to the abbreviations. I
It wasn't
don't know
in
off the top of my
It
head.
isn't in?
Oh, it's not in there.
Oh.
I want to know what it was too.
Great, so
I
there's
had
something
found
that
some
we
charts
call
at the very
SED on that one.
Yeah, because they were pretty good about most of their other abbreviations.
Right.
I didn't want to know what that was.
And then 9.3 is taking energy costs and factoring them in. So it's and the paragraph before sort of describes that if energy costs don't rise at all,
Right.
then we're only going to save $1 million. And it's a 12-year payback. On a 2.5% increase, it goes up to 2.379, and on a 4% increase, it goes up to 2.8. 2.5 is generally accepted factor for energy rate increase, and you know, over a 20-year period, that's a pretty conservative and normal bet because some years it may go up 5%, some years it may go down, so it averages out to somewhere in the 2.5 range.
Right, and
So
that's
it'd be
again
2.5.
unleveraged,
Correct.
if we don't borrow the money.
Correct.
So,
And then we get into, again, unleveraged with varying capital costs at a variety of different percentages. And this basically goes through all of the unleveraged costs. If you look at section 10, it gets into the financing and ownership models.
Okay.
And that looks at doing bond issues, a public-private partnership, and things of that matter, and
I
the
read that.
economics
That-
change a little
That
bit.
you can understand. My question on all of these charts, obviously, we would not be buying this unit unleveraged.
Correct.
So why?
Because they're shown, it's a standard chapter in a feasibility study, is they show you the economics of it if you were able to pay out of pocket. And theoretically, we could, you know, the Board of Selectmen has set up a series of financial procedures that look to move the town away from bonding capital projects.
Yep.
So this may not apply to us, but there may be some towns that have, and I don't think there's a lot of them, but in 20 years, we may be in a position where we could have done this unleveraged. So as part of the requirements of the feasibility study through the CEC, these economics are required to be in the feasibility study to provide us with the option should we have an extra $3 million kicking around.
In all reality, these numbers aren't, I don't want to say realistic.
They don't apply to our
they're-
situation based on the financial situation that we're in now. They are realistic numbers if a town were able to pour out
Right.
capital in an unleveraged situation.
So when, I'm just trying to get to the point that I think that this AEP is if it runs at 85%, as an example, 85% efficiency, we would save 2.1
Yes.
over a 20-year period.
Correct.
Right. If we paid for it upright.
Correct.
Right.
And,
And it delivered what
and
they said it's going to do.
I know there's charts in there that
Correct.
say all this. Just can't find them.
you know, and then we get into this is probably the more applicable chart for our situation.
Which one?
It's chart 10-1. It's on page 10-1.
Yep.
And that's looking at bonding
Okay.
and paying on a 20-year note, which is essentially the life of the turbine, and what the original savings were, and
So that 2 million, in theory, that 2 million something savings becomes $1,499,000 at 2.5, at 3%.
3%.
At 3%, it comes, yes,
Okay.
1.5.
That'll be net savings.
Yes, that's the 20-year net savings.
Okay. Yep. Thank you.
Do you know what Ed Kestovich is borrowing for the town now? I heard that
He's
the
borrowing for the
2%.
middle school and the high school, and you mean projects or percentage?
Percentage.
I don't. I know that in December we held our AA Happy Time rating.
On
I don't.
PM.
Yeah, we didn't go down. We stayed the same with a positive outlook. I think that in January they went out to borrow, and they did borrow at a reduced rate from what they previously had. I know the high school, they saved some money on that. I want to say it's upwards of 2, but I don't know if it's at 3. That's
Yeah, I would say
it's above my pay grade, so I can only speculate.
Just to continue that, just one more on figure 10.4. If you look at it with a bond rate of 2.5%, the 20-year savings becomes $900,000. Am I reading that correctly?
With a 2.5 escalation rate and a P90 production result.
Right.
Yeah, that's,
And then if you look at figure 10.5, if I'm reading it correctly, it could actually go into a negative. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, where?
Figure
10.5
With a bond rate of 2.5%,
and a 0% energy
20-year
escalation
savings
rate.
would actually be a loss of $200,000
That's if energy doesn't increase.
if the energy doesn't increase, correct?
And if, in the
much
likelihood of a
chance of that,
10% chance
worry
that the
about that.
production would not be met.
Yep.
And I want to go back to Holy Name on the point of the energy production. I know that their feasibility study, for lack of a better term, because they didn't have the same level of feasibility study, was done by a series of WPI students using an anemometer on the roof of the building, which is a little bit less than ideal. And SED came in at the back end of that to sort of walk them through the process of building the turbine. In the process of building the turbine, they were actually looking for a turbine that was somewhere in the 20 to 30 feet taller than what they actually installed. And based on the passage of Worcester's ordinance, they were required to cut their turbine down. I'm not saying that's going to account for a 30% reduction, but that is going to have some impact.
Yep.
I also think that the fact that the original study was done on numbers based on the production on a structure may have skewed it. And I don't know, I know anecdotally about how they did that. So I don't know that the build-up to it was as, I don't want to say scientific, but wasn't as precise as what was done here. So I don't know what their P factor is as far as reaching the results.
Sure.
And clearly, anytime you do something like this, there's a chance that it could utterly fall apart based on some minute factor, and that's kind of a risk you take building a project like this. So I want to say that we have a bit more precision and a little bit more length of data going into deriving some of these numbers. So I think that there's a little bit of a difference between what happens here and what happened at Holy Name.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a 30% drop in production is probably a little less likely. I would hope a lot less likely. And I think that also some of it comes in the final design. You know, this is a broad brush, here's the numbers that we have based on the information we've collected. It is feasible, here's what the general economics are, and then getting into the design is where we really nail down heights and distances and some of the things that are going to get further along into the production.
Yep.
So I just, I think you have some valid concerns. I think that we also have to take what's in this report for what it is. Is this feasible, and what are the potential economics? And as we get into it a little bit further, there's certainly going to be a little bit more detail that has to get fleshed out.
Well, that brings me, if I don't know.
Can I
if
just
this
add
is-
one more thing to what
Sure.
Adam said, and then I'll let you continue? They also couldn't use their best site, because they're limited. They have a lot of acreage up there, but the test results, when she was here and spoke with us, there were some, I don't forget if it's on electrical, underground wires, or if it's a gas line. But you can't build on so many feet on both sides of it. And that took away their best site. So
Sure.
that didn't help them any. And there were a lot of coordination problems. I mean, they had to hire, and we learned a lot from them. They had to hire a security company for 6 months because the manager of the project couldn't get the parts to arrive at about the same time. So they had to hire guards to watch it overnight because they were afraid people would go there and steal the copper wire.
But the issue, and not to belabor Holy Name, the issue at Holy Name really has been a series of breakdowns. And it's not uncommon to happen. And that's all I'm trying to do, again, just to make you realize. Anyway, to get back to his point, I don't know if this is the time to bring it up, but I had asked for a discussion on a peer review. So I don't know if that's the time you want to get into it, or...
I think it would fit best here. Yeah, I think this would be a good time.
Good.
Go right ahead.
Good. Peer reviews are done when you get an engineering report, and you need to have a technical look at it so that you know the report is correct. They're typically done in the town during the permitting process. It wouldn't be done in this case in the permitting process. It would be done at this point, because this is when you're getting the report. What the peer review does is to look with a technical eye at a report. So now's the time you want to do it. I think in here he lists somewhere $205,000 for design. You want to do that before the design, not after. So in that package that I sent out, there is a copy of one peer review, and it's pretty thorough, and it's very interesting. I don't know that company from a hole in the wall, and I'm sure there are a dozen other companies that would do a peer review too, but now is the time to do it. Just, even as we were just discussing these numbers here, they're kind of head scratchers. I mean, there's 6 or 8 people in this room. I don't think that we all came to the exact conclusion of what those numbers in that section read. And there are a whole lot of other sections here that we know nothing about. So if at some point, I'm not asking for a decision tonight, but I would certainly hope that we would do a peer review on this project.
I'll just make one comment, then I'm going to defer it to Adam, because he's an expert in when things happen in the town process. This is an advisory government agency. All we do is advise. We have no budget. So we don't have any money to work with. Everything we got, we beg for it, or we got a grant for it. It's as simple as that. We just don't have a budget. And I'll just put that in mind.
Could I just answer that?
Sure.
Then if you make a recommendation tonight to approve it, I don't know if you're going or not, but if you do, I would hope your recommendation would say to the Board of Selectmen, we want to proceed a little bit further, but we want to do a peer review now, so that we know that what the information we're looking at is correct. Or we know that it maybe could be made a little bit better. I don't know.
Yeah, I think Adam is an expert in where this happens in the process in the town. He knows much more about it than I do.
I guess I'll start with a question. I didn't get the packet. So someone had a peer review of the feasibility study done for the town?
SED did and I just happened to stumble on it, SED did a feasibility study for the town of Duxbury. And they did it without a Met Tower, so it was
Okay.
It was evidently less of a, and that was some of the points that so Duxbury took it and they send it out to an engineering firm that reviews these things. And there's certainly are more than one or two.
Okay.
And they sent it out to them, and they came back with I'll drop a copy off with you.
Yeah, I guess I'm just, now did Duxbury do their study through a grant from the state, or did they do it out of their own pocket?
I have no idea.
Okay, but and I ask because when this is done, it gets submitted to the CEC, the Clean Energy Center at the state who funded the project, and their staff reviews it and makes comments and submits comments back to SED, who make changes and corrections and resubmit it to the state. I know it's gone between our project rep at the state and SED at least twice, with some changes based on what they saw in the draft study.
Yep.
So,
The other part of the package that I sent to these people, many of the towns that are having problems are having testing done, and the state CEC, is it?
yes.
Has come in and done testing, and more than one of the towns has decided to go out to an independent firm to review the state's assessment of the problem.
And these are town projects?
Yeah.
Okay. I guess I've never seen a feasibility study go through a peer review process. Generally, it's a design. The peer review is a design review, and I mean, I guess anything is peer reviewable. You look at any
Sure.
journal, and every article in it has been reviewed by the peers. So, I guess I'm sort of at a loss as to how the funding would happen, because at this point the town hasn't spent funds out of its coffers to have this study done. And I would imagine that a peer review somewhere in the $5,000 to $8,000 range.
I have no idea.
And it almost seems, it doesn't almost, it just, I'm trying to reconcile spending that much money to have a professional's report that was reviewed by a governmental agency, then further reviewed. I'm not saying it's wrong or it's not something that should be done. I'm just trying to put it together that something that's been done and I guess in theory been reviewed by experts who are employed by the Commonwealth would then be sent back out for additional review at an additional cost to the municipality. So, again, most of the peer reviews that we see are on the design and the hard technical facts of this will work, this won't work. This road isn't wide enough, the pitch is too high, the drainage isn't going to work, that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
Well, but see, none of this is designed yet. So until the access road is designed, it's difficult to say it will or won't work. And that's why I'm hesitating on having a feasibility study reviewed as opposed to having design documents verified. Do you see where where I'm having trouble with it?
We don't have any problem if somebody comes in and he wants to put up a Cumberland Farms, or he wants to put up a Fuller's,
Sure.
Fuller's
Yeah.
extension. We don't have any problem at all saying to the proponent, we need $3,500 from you to send it out to see if your catch
Correct.
basins work.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't think of it. It's a great idea, in my opinion, because we don't know. When I don't care what board it is, when they look at it, they don't know if the engineering calculations work.
Correct.
That's why you send it out.
Yeah.
You don't know if these numbers work.
True.
You don't. And now's the time to find out. It's small money. And we spent 85 grand. That's small money. It's well worth the 85 grand. I don't have any problem with it. It's small money to get a professional peer review now so that we know the numbers work. We know the model they used for the flicker. It affects, I don't know, 38 homes. Maybe it affects 400 homes. Who knows? So now's the time to do a peer review, not after we spend another 200 grand in design,
Was it 38 or was it 10 that were located?
whatever it is.
I think it's 10. Well, actually, it was maybe 9, I think, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, that was a lot.
I could be wrong.
Just a point, on
Oh, here it is, right here. Flicker.
that report.
Just let me finish this one point, Dave, then you
Okay.
go right ahead. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yep, I think there are 10 here. But that's unimportant. I mean, maybe it's 14.
I think the receptors are 38.
Maybe it's to a certain, well,
They
have
don't,
you looked at this map?
yeah, well, they have a chart that lists it. Shadow flicker model results. And they don't list them by address, they call them SR1, SR2, SR3,
Right.
and there's 38 of them.
Yeah, mine goes up to 36.
Yeah, it's all the ones on South Oxford Road, it's all the ones on, what's the new neighborhood?
Bridle Path?
Bridal, no,
Yeah.
Booth
Meeting house.
Road, Booth Road.
Road, yeah, Boot Road, that's right.
Linden Lane.
While we're talking about that flicker, I think we've mentioned several times that we asked SED if they could turn the turbine off during that period of time, so there is no flicker. And so, because we're on TV, we got to understand several things about flicker. You've got to be in the right position with the sun in the right position, absolutely, to hit the house. What are the problems with that happening? These turbines turn to get the best wind every day, which eliminates part of the flicker. They may even tilt, the blade may tilt, that can eliminate it. If it's overcast at night, I mean during the day, you have no flicker. There is no flicker at night. I have 4 picture windows in my house. If that flicker was hitting me in the picture window that I sit next to, that's important. If it hit the back of my house, I wouldn't care. The foliage interferes with flicker. So even though they have identified, and the WPI students also identified a lot of homes that had flicker, but they were for a small period of time, and the conditions have to be absolutely perfect for that to happen. In my position, I wouldn't want it in my house. I wouldn't do it to a neighbor. I think that it should be shut down during those periods.
If I may, through the chair, there were some houses reported in this list that are going to have the flicker effect for more than 70 hours.
Well, then I say shut it down.
But if we shut it down, doesn't that change all our numbers that we're
So we-
$2 million and $3 million? So now those have all changed as well.
It
All the
may-
numbers changed.
If it wasn't factored in, where they said there's downtime,
Right.
so we'd have to ask that question. It's a
Well,
good question.
If I could respond to that.
Yes.
You said you haven't read the package they sent last week.
Well,
There are-
Rick,
There are houses.
I haven't had time to read it.
I understand,
Yeah. This is what I was reading.
But I just wanted to, as long as we're talking about flicker, there are towns, Falmouth, Fairhaven, Kingston, and Situate, that are dealing with this flicker issue. And we see it up north. It always says when they come down to these meetings and they can't stand the flicker anymore, they say, well, in the feasibility studies, you told us that you could fix it. It never gets fixed. It never gets fixed. That's why it's so important to do this thing right now. It never gets fixed. And eventually the people dump the house and they move. And it's what happens.
Well, you remember there was another test tower in Auburn, and I opposed that test tower because of flicker, and because it didn't have a drop zone. It was right on Millbury Street.
But that's kind of like,
That's an example of Falmouth too. I mean, some of these wind turbines were put in the wrong place. I mean, you should have put it on water. I mean, if I stand here and on the other side of the pond, I say hi, they're going to hear my whole conversation because it's on water. The topography of this site is very different from Falmouth. And we should really notate that. I mean, you're basically talking about dropping off Ranger cliffs here, but all of these houses drop off quite a bit too if we look at the topographical map. Just a point, for what it's worth. Adam, did you?
Through the chair, I sort of, to not
If you guys
necessarily,
would just raise your hands way up so I could see it.
to a point on the flicker study and the sound study and all of the studies that are in there, when Matt was here 2 meetings ago, were you here for that?
I was.
Rick? Okay.
That was the meeting that wasn't the meeting.
There wasn't a quorum.
It wasn't a court, that's right.
Okay, there was a discussion about the fact that topography and foliage isn't taken into account with these. So, to Nancy's point about the 70 hours, and I'm not saying it's going to, that those factors are going to completely eliminate the flicker, but I think that the magnitude of it is probably exaggerated to a point in what's shown. But I don't think that those other factors negate it. I think it's something that we should, again, since we're on television and we're having this discussion, it should be noted that the party that did the study said this is done under the assumption of a completely flat, completely bare ground. And so once you introduce foliage and once you introduce topography, it reduces the effect to a degree. It doesn't completely eliminate it.
No, it certainly doesn't.
And there are other physical mitigation measures that can be installed, especially if you're looking at a number of houses that is small compared to, 100 or 500 or
Yep.
1,000.
Some of these studies, the towns come to them and they say, well, look, we'll put triple pane windows in for you. We'll air conditioning your house, we'll do that. I don't think it's right to treat houses or families or owners, taxpayers, as collateral damage.
Oh,
And say, listen, if we know the problem's gonna come up, we'll do something to quiet you down. And then somebody said, well, it should be acceptable to have 30 hours of flicker per year. So, if it's under that, we'll deal with it. Well, dealing with it from the town hall is different than dealing with it from the guy's living room.
Sure, and I agree with you, and I'm not saying that their concerns should be mitigated, that they should be treated as, well, you're just collateral damage, so we're going to do this little thing to fix it. But at the same time, if someone is willing to have like an awning, a retractable awning installed, and that does eliminate the flicker for the time period, and they find that acceptable, I think that can be considered a reasonable solution. I'm not saying it should be imposed on them, but if the offer is made, and you said 30 hours is acceptable. I think that's what either, I don't know if it's Germany or
I
that's
think
the
it came out
industry
in Germany,
standard. They've said that
yeah.
30 hours
Yep.
per year is acceptable. If you think about 30 hours over 52 weeks, it's less than an hour a week. And I'm not saying that 15 minutes of this it should be considered tolerable, but what I'm saying is it's not 30 straight hours. And to Bob's point about the study is based outside of hours on when the sun is up. It's just a straight up, the sun's always shining.
Right.
There's no clouds.
I
There's not,
understand.
so it's an extreme case, I guess is what I'm trying to say, and that there are physical ways to deal with it if people are willing to entertain those options.
Again, I'll draw the analogy of what we make private people do when they come in to go through site plan approval. We don't have any problem making them do peer reviews and all that. Here we're gonna flicker somebody's living room for 30 hours a year. And the other side of it, we put up electronic signs in town, and we're measuring how often they change because we're so concerned about it. It's like a double standard here. You know what I'm saying? We don't want people to see a sign flash more than once every 5 minutes or whatever the number is.
But that's not what we're talking about right now.
Well, it's exactly, it's a
I-
double standard, that's what
well,
I'm saying.
I understand the
That's
analogy
distraction
to
for
a degree.
drivers,
I think the argument on the electronic signs is that they provide a potential distraction and safety hazard for a driver and I don't think the same can be applied to flicker in a living room. I think that your point on what we require applicants to do in front of boards as far as feasibility, as far as peer reviews, we also require them to provide mitigation either on their property or in conjunction with agreement per abutting property owners. So I think that providing a physical awning or additional evergreen plantings or something along that line could be analogous. So I don't think it's too far out there for a project like this to approach somebody who may be impacted and offer to provide physical mitigation. It's not. It's analogous to requiring a fence to prevent lights. So and you know, again, I understand 30 hours is a difficult pill to swallow, and I'm not saying anybody should be forced to just live with it. But what I'm also saying is that there's ways to deal with that flicker that aren't necessarily shutting the turbine down, and it's a matter of the town being sensitive to those parties that may be involved and looking at what that implication is on the cost of the project and the long-term return and sanity of the residents.
Yep. And you have the exact same situation with sound, that you have to mitigate it for some people, and more than they thought. Invariably, a lot of towns are shutting them down at night now.
Well, yeah, and I think that we have actually a benefit in that, as the closest house is more than a quarter mile away. I think in most projects that's not the case. You're dealing with more of several hundred feet as opposed to over 1,000. And we're in the process of applying for a fully funded acoustical study from the CEC that will further flesh out what the sound impacts would be to the adjoining neighborhoods, and businesses are probably less of an issue, but the adjoining neighborhoods and how what the actual sound the actual sound impact would be.
Okay.
Yes, Dave, I think we did about 10 minutes ago. I just hope we don't keep going over the same points.
All right, well, I did read as much of this as I could absorb. There's a lot of information in here. I think it was a good report that you did, Rick. You must have spent a lot of time and put a lot of effort into it. And it appears to me that the Energy Ventures Analysis report, which was a peer review of what Sustainable Energy had presented to the town, conflicted. There was a conflict there, and as a result, according to the Duxbury Clipper local newspaper, their committee shot the project down and found that they actually could get more benefit from the solar project. Just wanted to make that point. That I don't think the money that they spent
7.1.
was wasted.
But you know, you're working on solar projects every day, pretty much.
Yeah, but I mean, I read the paper every day too.
Right.
There's
It
every
takes
day
up a lot more
there's.
space than a turbine, right?
And you have to believe everything that's in the paper, right?
Well, no,
Well, it's like the
And in every report.
It's gotta be true.
And in every report.
Wow. Bob, to get back,
Yes,
if
sir.
I may,
Are you done,
This-
Dave?
Yeah, I'm done. Yeah.
Okay, yes.
we have to remember that this is only a feasibility study.
Yes,
saying
right.
that it can be done. And a lot of times in my, the history I've had with feasibility studies, they're either gonna put the best and the worst case scenarios
Sure.
in a feasibility study so that you're aware that when you go forward with a project, that, you know, these 30 houses with the flicker, or 30 hours, I should say, like Adam said, that's worst case scenario. Flat, no foliage, you know, basically going across the water. We go forward, or we accept the feasibility that this project could go forward. Once they get into the design of the actual tower itself, all of these studies are gonna, they'll be relooked at. And I think more in-depth studies would be done on the actual location. I mean, this location may not be, I mean, they probably have a general location, but it's not, it probably won't be exact, or it may not be exact.
Yeah, I think it's within 100 feet here
Yeah,
or there.
but I mean, that 100 feet could make a big difference as far as flicker goes, too. So, you know, this, I agree with Adam as far as, you know, I've never seen a feasibility study be peer reviewed. Rick, I understand where you're coming from, that we don't want to jump into something before we have all of the correct information or reviewed information, but I don't know, I have a hard time accepting having a peer review done on a feasibility study.
You know,
When, Adam, are peer reviews usually done in this town?
As part of the design. So a design
That
is
would be-
submitted and the peer review is done as
It would be a
part
couple
of
of
the
steps
submission.
from now.
A certain percentage
could
design?
I
No,
just,
just the initial submission.
the reason peer reviews are done in the permitting process is because that is when you get the report. So peer reviews are done when you get the report, which is now.
You get a feasibility report in the planning department?
You have a report in front of you that no one in this room knows what the heck it says. Is a pretty general, technically, knows technically what it says, all right? And it was done by a developer, which is my
Right.
real concern. If this was done by an engineering firm, maybe we look at it a little differently. It was done by a developer. When a developer does a feasibility study, you get what he sells. And these guys sell the Gamesa 850 KW thing.
It was still reviewed by other engineers that are hopefully impartial. Have you been down to Westboro at Massachusetts Technology Collaborative? It's a rather large building full of engineers, and they review these.
State engineers?
Yes.
Is that the way you're saying?
Yes. Yeah.
I'd be very comfortable having a private engineering firm do a peer review. You have to understand, the state, that CEC, that's what they do. They promote renewable energy, and that's a good thing. I'm not arguing against any of that. But they don't look at these things with a hard eye. And they're not going to be around if we have problems 3 or 4 years down the road. They might come in and do another test or something, but that's all they're going to do.
Well, I thought at the last meeting you explained that you didn't like grant money on projects like this. They can't do it on their own.
Grant money is tax money. So it's our tax money. I mean, that's another whole argument a discussion that I hope we can have at some point. But
Actually, this grant money
Yeah.
is from the Renewable Energy Trust, which isn't grant money. It's
where did it come from?
it's fee money from ratepayers on electric utilities. So it's
We've had to pay it.
correct.
Any other comments on the final report? It sounds like we have a lot of questions still, and that we haven't had time. I don't know, if I asked you to raise your hand, if you read it all, every bit of it, how many hands I would have to tell me that they read every bit of it?
There's a lot of technical stuff in the end, the back here that,
Do you have questions on it?
well, there's a lot of it that I don't think anybody in this room would understand.
So please, this is...
There's about 100 pages of it.
Oh, is
I
that the
think that's-
dates of
that's-
when they read the?
That's all of that's the raw data
Yeah.
from the Met Tower, and it's a required inclusion as submission to CEC.
So that's a big part of this.
Yeah.
report right there.
Yeah, there's
100 pages.
a lot of other pages before that.
Doesn't show the interruption.
Are we done? Any other comments on that? Any suggestions?
Right there, Jeff, right there.
Tim, looking at that map, is Route 20 highlighted in the yellow section or the green
Yes, it
section?
is.
Route 20 is.
Yeah, it is not in the flicker zone though.
It is not.
It is not, well, I
Because
shouldn't
I'm
say
just
that.
wondering, coming down Route 20 about
Yeah.
5 o'clock, 6, 7 o'clock in the afternoon,
Down by
it's
the,
terrible right now. I can't imagine something going like that.
down by the Pub 99 and down by Chili's, that area
That is
is
in the zone.
impacted down there.
In the 1 to
Put
9.
that up on the board? That
Yeah.
map right there.
What do you know?
Tim,
Oh, well,
What number that is?
I would.
It should be right on it.
Because I was just curious about coming down the BJ's, down the hill by BJ's, and then again down by McDonald's.
I don't think that area, because that time of day,
The sun is like
dir-
over Chuck's.
it's directly in front of you.
Yeah, it's like-
And your turbine would be off to the,
So it would
off
be,
to the left.
Oh, that's not the.
it would be in the morning then that it'd
Yeah, more so, probably mid-morning, I would,
coming up
Yep,
the
coming
BJ's
up
hill.
with-
yeah,
yes,
because
in
it
the
comes up,
morning,
it
correct.
comes up like this over Route 20, basically,
Correct.
from left to right. So you may get more of it 10 o'clock, 9, 10.
In the morning?
In the morning.
Oh.
The flicker, not the sun,
Right,
you're thinking of
right.
the sun being directly in your face. right?
And then seeing the shadow going like
But-
this
The shadow, it wouldn't be casting a
behind
shadow,
me,
the
yeah.
shadow would be
behind it.
Oxford Street
Right,
south
yeah.
from that angle of sun.
Yeah.
More so than Route 20 would be.
Yeah, okay, gotcha.
Rick?
I know you haven't read the stuff that I said, but I'd like to just go over it very, very briefly so that we know the items that are in there, so that people watching know that there are other issues too.
Well, let me just explain so they know what happened, is that I received, this meeting was planned 2 weeks prior to this, with the idea that this would be our major thing, that people would read this report thoroughly. And I asked, is 2 weeks long enough to do that? And the people said yes. With that, I received a text message last Wednesday or Thursday that you had dropped a package off at Town Hall and that you wanted me to come and pick it up. And I wasn't able to that day. Town Hall was already closed when I read that text message. And my Friday was all gone, and Town Hall closes, as you know, at 1 p.m. on Friday. So I picked it up Monday morning. You called me at 8:30 in the morning, the only conversation we've had, and asked me if you could deliver that package. And I said, as long as you told them that it wasn't from me, that it was from you, and that you were delivering it.
Yep.
And I said, I have no problems with that.
Yep.
You know,
Because
because I believe in an open society, but I just didn't expect it to be read for this meeting,
Yeah, that's all.
because
That's fine, I can appreciate that. I just wanted
Look at it.
to kind of just go over the things that are in that package without a lot of detail.
I didn't put it on the agenda, so I'd like to go through the agenda, and if there's time that people are willing to stay after that, then it's okay with me.
Well, there's a
But-
meeting in here at 7 o'clock.
But we want to finish this agenda right now.
Okay.
So, and since it wasn't on the agenda, I just explained how it happened.
Well, you certainly had it before it was, you wrote the agenda, but that's fine. That's fine.
No, the agenda was written long before
Okay.
that,
Okay.
you know, and you have to give me credit. I took some of the agenda from your suggestions, and I thank you for that. I'm always looking for the items for the agenda, either from the town or for the committee members. Okay, so flicker discussion, I think we've pretty much covered. What do you think? Balloon test. Let's start with a different person this time. We'll go ahead. Have you started it on one of the items yet, Jeff?
No, I haven't.
All right, so we'll start with you and we'll move this way.
All right, I wasn't able to review it, so I have no comment at this time.
So the suggestion was that Rick wanted to have a balloon test at the site to show people how high it would be, I believe. Is that correct, Rick?
That's correct.
And that's why I put it on the agenda, because
I don't know if how high it would be is the guy. I think we need to know where we can see it
you
from.
can see it, site.
Obviously, this plays
Line
into
of sight.
the next issue, the land values. So,
Okay.
If I can interrupt Rick, I was involved in a project in Oxford, and I believe they have to simulate the height of the instrument to get a true accurate.
you do in this town too.
Okay. Okay, so we're in agreement.
Yeah.
And I believe that would be the height that you would have to send that up. And that it has to be notified and posted
Yep.
on various sites, so.
You do that in this town with a cell tower. When
Okay.
someone comes
Well,
in
that's
with
what
a
I
cell
was
tower,
involved
you
with
have
there,
to
a cell
put a
tower. Exactly, so,
Yep.
I mean.
Now, the height of that, would that be the hub or would it be the tips of the plates, do you know?
I can't give you that exact answer. I would have,
Oh, I'm sorry.
no, go ahead, Adam.
I was gonna say,
Give
we
the
don't
answer.
have a bylaw right now. The draft bylaw that was withdrawn, if I remember correctly, speaks to the height of the blade at full extension. Yeah.
So the absolute height of the
Correct.
structure would be measured.
I mean, and it could be done in a variety of different ways. There could be 2 balloons flown, one at the height of the tip, one at the height of the nacelle, and that would give probably a more reasonable.
Yeah.
Because I believe the hub itself, would be more visible than the actual. Possibly.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, well, it certainly draws the eye a lot more.
Well, to answer your question, it was the 13th.
I'm sorry.
No, that's
June,
fine.
which
You
was
did the
long
answer.
before you dropped the package off. Yes, Dave.
Something would have to hire somebody.
I don't have any objection
We
to
just gotta let them-
putting the balloon test up
Yeah.
if the town wanted to
Yeah, I
pay
wouldn't
for
have an
it.
objection.
If the town wanted to pay
If
for it.
whoever, depends on who's gonna pay for it, I guess.
I don't want to pay for it. I don't have any problems.
We don't
with
have
it
any
either.
money, we know that.
I think it's a great idea, and I think we should do it.
Yeah, could we get an RFP on that? See how much it would cost? I mean, I don't think.
Well, they wanted to put a radio tower next to my house, and they just used a fire truck. Oh, but we can't get a fire truck up that car road.
You're not gonna
Fire
get
truck.
They
five.
did.
You're not going to get a fire
300
truck
feet.
that does
300 feet.
450.
Yeah, well, no.
Our truck
that's-
goes 95 feet, that's,
Is that it? And then
Yeah.
they did the balloon off
So
off of
your
that.
fire
This
truck
was a
didn't
couple
even
years
reach the top
ago.
of the Met Tower.
no.
Could we use the Met Tower and go off that?
No.
Typically, it'd
What
be
would-
be an
what would the-
on-site.
What would the tip of the blade be, 200 and?
Tip of the
50
blade,
feet?
I think, is 350-ish.
I mean, is this
the answer's
something
in the report
that needs
somewhere.
to be a professional company that does this, that puts up the balloon? It does?
It was done
I
by
would
an
think so.
engineering firm. That
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, when I was with the Shared the Veterans Memorial Corridor, we
Reliable.
tried one of those, and they had a lot of trouble doing it. The engineers
Reliable,
formed it up
that's
over
gonna
and
be-
over.
You have to take the wind into consideration and things
Yeah,
like that. It's
yeah,
not
yeah.
just, we're not flying kites, but
No.
So we can't just measure a piece of rope 300 feet and say, okay, there you
No,
go.
you know the flag at Cussy Square?
Yes.
They tried to put the balloon up there so we could see how high the flagpole would be. And they had, if I tell you it was difficult, it was difficult. And they had, I think, 4 people trying to do it, so it was, Nancy, so you're... you don't
I
have any
think it's a
problems?
good idea.
Good idea, Jack?
Well, I mean, don't know exactly how this is done, but I mean, you're not going to drive a big truck up there with a huge balloon. I mean, there's no road in there, right?
Right.
So, is it what kind of an idea? It depends.
wouldn't hurt.
It depends on how much it's, how you're going to go about it. I mean, it might be good, might not be feasible. I mean, might not be able to be done. As conditions are right now. I mean, unless you change the conditions and the access and
we don't even
like you
know
say.
if
I mean, you're not gonna be someone you're not gonna walk up there with someone with a 200-foot string and hold a balloon up there for a day. I mean, that's not the way to go about it.
I wonder if we were to contact them, if they could refer us to a couple companies that we could at least get some information, what we would need, what conditions and site conditions and.
Well, if you'd like to make a motion right after this, that's fine. That's great, that would be what I'm looking for on any one of these. Adam?
My only concern is the town hasn't decided to move forward with this.
Right.
And there's no money allocated for something like that. So sans actually allocating some design funds, I find it difficult to spend the money on a balloon test. But that's, if the committee wants to make that motion, that's your motion to make, and it would be up to the town manager to decide to find those funds and allocate them. But without some concept of moving forward, some design funds allocated by town meeting, I think it would be, or at least the authorization to acquire design funds. I think it's preemptive to put a balloon test up, only because let's say the committee decides to do it, the town manager's like, yeah, I've got the money to do a balloon test. We fly a balloon, let's say we wait till September so that everybody's around, nobody's on vacation, and we fly it and everybody freaks out. Or everybody says, oh, this is great, I can't wait to see the wind turbine. We go to town meeting in May and town meeting says, nope, either everybody's forgotten about it or we've created such a buzz that it doesn't even get to that point. If it's something that it looks like is feasible and we want to go forward with, I think that's probably a more appropriate time to start spending money on it, is once we've decided we actually want to design it. But it just, I think we run the risk of either causing panic in a case where we don't even know what's going to happen with it, or we do it, by the time town meeting comes around, everyone goes, oh, how big is that? Where's it going to be? And everybody's sort of forgotten that we flew the balloon, except for one or two people.
Well, I look at it in a different way. I'll give you an example.
Rick, after the whole...
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Yep.
I was hoping that would speed up the meeting a little bit, but are you all set, Jack?
Yeah.
I don't have any problems with the balloon test. I don't want to pay for it as a taxpayer, but I have no problems. Maybe SCD can find that money in the $85,000. That would be my suggestion. At our the last financial statement I passed out to you, they had only claimed $37,000. You weren't at that meeting, so you didn't see the report. And out of $85,000, so that's all they had billed the town for. Well, what the town had paid, and Ed Casanova is pretty good at that stuff. So maybe they have an extra $1,000. They said at the beginning that they always had leeway with some money. Even the building of the road, they had money where they might be able to help us out with that in that $85,000 amount. Personally, I have no problems with the balloon test. But as a taxpayer, I don't want to pay a dime for it.
Well,
You know, if my taxes are going up too high as it is, and if I want to get anything, I want to mitigate those costs. I want to see some things from town that bring some income in here. And, you know, yes.
I think that we really should look at getting that balloon test done, because I want all the residents of Auburn to see it. Agreed. I think we should first find out how much it's going to cost before we go ahead with this. I mean, because obviously if it's, very expensive, we're going to have to, revisit it. However, if you read some of the things that Rick sent out and some of the different complaints that are generated throughout the other, residents and whatnot, I think we have to present this forward in front of everyone before we start, looking at all the hard numbers and things like that. So I am really in favor of that.
Back ahead of time.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I want to approach it.
So, if someone wants to make a motion, I don't know exactly how to word that.
I'll move that we contact
SED.
SED to see if they've, number one, done it themselves before, or if they can recommend at least someone that we can talk to get a quote or a price, and what's required to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, they're the people that would know. I mean, otherwise,
There you go.
I mean, what do you Google, balloons? I mean, I don't know. So I move that we contact SED for guidance as far as doing.
I'll second that.
Okay, Jack, you got it.
Great, any discussion? All in favor, raise your hands.
Aye.
That's unanimous. Okay, let's move on to the next one, time of meetings discussion. This time we'll start with David. Rick had suggested that we change the time of the meeting to 7 p.m.
I'd like the 5 o'clock time, but whatever the committee.
I apologize. Rick wanted to make a comment on the last vote, and I apologize for that.
As long as these things are televised, I'm fine for the time being. You may, as the process moves along, you may want to move it tonight.
Well, I got it on here. Let's discuss it so I get their feelings again,
Yep.
because we worked really hard.
Yep.
It took me a long time to get a matrix to find out when people could come and
Yep.
when they couldn't.
As long as these things are being televised, I'm
Supplies.
happy.
5's okay as long as it's televised. Rick, is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
5 p.m. is okay.
And I think last time you expressed what you thought of 7 p.m., right?
Yeah, you know what I think of 7
Yeah, I know,
p.m.
you know
7 p.m. is
what?
bedtime.
You know what?
It's bedtime.
You're up at what time?
Really early.
I have to excuse
I
myself.
would rule on a couple of them. September, October, November would be totally out for me, and a few other ones depend. I have 1 week a month I couldn't do it, so would have to spend. 5 works perfect, 7,
Okay.
imperfect.
I can meet almost any time when, I mean, I am working part-time and I'm offered more work than I can do, and I'm refusing it all the time. So I can meet, 5, 6, 7 o'clock.
I could meet another, it's just that
But
when.
I'm not asking for it because I want to make sure you have a quorum here. And we already have one difficulty in that we have 7 people on the committee and we only have 6 people actually on here physically. So our quorum is 4 every time, and which makes it difficult when you're planning meetings. Yes.
I'm pretty flexible. Anywhere between 5 and 7 is going to work for me. So
Okay.
whatever you guys come up with.
For the most part, any of those times, I could have more conflicts at 7 o'clock. Like tonight, I have to go to finance there at 7 o'clock.
So you prefer 5.
Yeah.
So I think we'll just keep it the time the way it is. And I would prefer myself not to change the time around, just to keep it on the same day at the same times. Because the other thing we got to worry about is conflicts with other committees.
Yeah.
And
Like
trying
Adam said, there's another meeting at 7 o'clock tonight.
Right.
Here, and then there's one across the hall as well, so.
Yeah, thank you. So, all right, moving right along. Discussion regarding television readings. I just wanted to know how you felt and we started with Dave, it'll go to Nancy this time. I know it's already a done deal, but
Yeah, I don't care.
she doesn't care, Jack. It doesn't matter to me either.
Oh, I think we have to get all this information out to the town before
It's a good way to get it out.
Yeah, I was gonna say, the more we go forward, the more information that's being.
we're going to have to tell them sooner or later.
It's better off to get it out there for the people that are interested.
So everyone agrees.
I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it.
Okay, so there we go. That takes care of that. Hampshire Council update, that's up to me. I've got 2 phone calls into them, no return phone call yet. So we'll see what happens, but this is vacation time. Number 9, real estate values at Prospect Street site. Since I'm not an expert in real estate, I asked a realtor, and he said it would have no effect. That was his professional opinion, and he will put that in writing.
Has he ever sold a home near a wind turbine? Or has he only sold homes in this area?
This is his main area.
This is his area.
Absolutely.
So he's never
Absolutely.
sold near any turbines, Falmouth, Duxbury, Princeton.
You know, I can't answer that question.
Gardner.
I-
It's easy to
I-
say now that there's not one
there
there.
yet.
Yeah,
You don't know what the effect will be on,
Yeah, I also called SED and they said that there's a lot of information on it that says it doesn't have any effect. And they said they were gonna mail it to us and they did. I don't have it yet.
So SED's gonna forward some info.
We hope so.
Okay.
If not, I will ask for it again. But evidently there have been studies done on this and he said they had it didn't have much of an effect. I also had someone call me after the article and they said that they had just gone through a group of $1 million homes this weekend and took pictures of the wind turbines right next to them, and that there was no objection there to the wind turbines or the value. So I wouldn't want it on Millbury Street, but this one where it is, and I think that's one of the things we need to do, is this is a very isolated site. We've already had experts in the field tell us it's one of the nicest sites they've seen for a wind turbine because of the isolation and the drop zone. So, yes. Rick.
The 10th section of the package that I gave you, I know you haven't read it yet, but
Yeah.
as 4 or 5 or 6 real estate agents that handle Falmouth, Fairhaven, Situate, that area, that all say that it has a substantial effect on property values. And it really, we can talk about it next meeting if you haven't read it, but
Again,
they would have no reason to say that it has an effect on real estate values. The last thing a real estate agent wants to say is something negative. But they were honest, and there were 4 or 5 or 6 of them that say, yeah, it absolutely does. I'll give you another example how it could, the first 2 or 3 sections in here go over the towns that are having problems and have gone back to town meeting to try to get money to take these things down. It's in the paper every week. You read about it. You go on the Falmouth News and you can read these stories. But just having that if someone, there's, one of the ladies, one of the real estate agents made a quote, she said, if people have a choice, and they do, they're not gonna come here because they know that there's an issue of the property values, and they know that there's an uncertainty of the property values. So you really have to read some of that section of it. But it really can certainly have an effect, and not just, in this case, on Prospect Hill. I'll give you an example. Deer Track, there was which is up off of Vine Street.
Oh, I know it. I almost bought that property.
Yeah, a house just sold up there for $457,000. Now that property, that road turns and looks at the sunset, right at the Met Tower. You think that house would sell for $450 if they looked at it in the afternoon and they looked into that turbine? I don't think so.
It depends on.
Probably would for you.
It would for me,
Yeah, I
definitely.
know.
That's on
Well, you know, it's
Bond
interesting in here, not
That's
to
on the end of
interrupt you,
Bond
it's
Street.
interesting in
That's
here,
what
it
we're
says,
talking
people like yourself really get buys because they don't mind the turbine, you can buy the houses that are
Or vice versa.
I'm sorry?
Or vice
Yeah,
versa.
down at the tail end.
Well, there's houses
I get
for
the
sale.
feeling you don't like wind turbines, so.
No, I
Yeah.
don't think they
That's what
will.
ended up.
I don't.
I don't think the money
So
end
we're
of
at
it works,
opposite
and
ends of the
I don't
spectrum
think
on
they
that.
save CO2, so.
Yeah, well, you know, there are many out there that do work. But I'd like to go back to that point I made at the beginning about let's compare about this project the way it is. And Falmouth is like talking about that Jeep with the gas tank that explodes instead of the Prius that I bought.
You can't be afraid to look at other towns.
I'm not afraid to look at it. When I saw the problems with the Jeep, I said I'm not going to get it.
Yeah, too.
Plus, it didn't, you know. But I'm saying, let's compare like terrain, the same topography, the same drop zones. Falmouth is a flat area. It's going to carry sound very a long distance.
I would hope we don't stick our head in the sand. I would hope.
I'm not asking you to stick your head in the sand.
This
It's not
committee
saying
should be
that.
looking at everything.
We absolutely. Well, I put these on the agenda. Correct? It should say something.
Some.
What else would you like?
Well,
Alright,
there was a story about Princeton Light and Power, who's written to the governor to try to get money because they're going bankrupt because of it. There's a story about Falmouth, who's gone back to town meeting to try to get money to take it down. It got turned down because they're not going to spend $13 million to tear it down.
Yeah.
Fairhaven is stopped them at night
It's wooded.
because of the sound. The state has come in and done a test, and Fairhaven Board of Health has asked that they get an independent.
And how many do they have up? So we're talking about a one turbine project. You're comparing it to multiple turbines.
Kingston, no, Kingston is in the same situation.
Right there.
Situate is in the same situation.
Anyway, I'd really like to read that, have a fair chance to read it. Well, I didn't have time to do that. And the way you dropped it off, this is really at the last minute, expecting me to
No, I
read
dropped it
it.
off a week ago.
I didn't get any call until, I read it on Thursday, it came on my phone on Wednesday afternoon.
If you could put it on the agenda for next meeting.
Yeah.
Sure.
What would you like on there? This set of things?
Sure.
That's fine, I would have time to read it then. But again, I want to talk about comparisons where it compares similar sites to this. And this is not Falmouth. So it's very different. Okay, where are we on this one? Any other comments on real estate values? Now, question now. Do you want to have another meeting on this report? Do you want to have another meeting with SED? What is the wish of the committee? And also, when would you like your next meeting? When we can get everyone. This is vacation time now. You've got a presentation coming up, I think Adam said sometime in July, but we don't have a date by SED.
Presentation from, presentation with who?
By SED.
Oh,
Do you
July?
remember when he came in, we went over the report, and then he made corrections, and it went to the engineers, and then and now it's a final report here. Remember, he did a presentation for us? That was in preparation of going before the select board.
Okay.
All right, so he's already got a date set to go before? No, he
No,
doesn't.
no.
Okay.
I have no
I
date.
misunderstood.
No. I'm waiting for Adam and the town to tell us what the date is.
So that could go before there's any recommendation or not.
That's good, very well.
I don't think there's a need that it has to be in July. In talking to Julie, I think,
She's setting that up.
Yeah, it didn't
We weren't consulted on that.
Actually,
no, I know that, yeah.
Actually, the Board of Selectmen's meeting dates, they went on their summer schedule. They're only meeting once a month,
Yeah,
July
true,
and
all
August.
summer.
And I don't know what,
I think it's July like 26th and
yeah,
August
so-
15th or something.
something.
No, I think it's July 15th.
Yeah, it's the middle of the month, I believe, both months.
15th, I believe.
And only one meeting is scheduled. So whether they do a special meeting just for this in the summer,
No, I don't think so. So we
And
don't
they
have a
may-
need for a meeting then.
not unless we want to discuss the concerns and
Right.
further discuss.
Well, that's what I've thrown it out to the committee. What would you like?
I think we should play it by ear, honestly. Unless something comes up between now and the end of August or whatnot.
And we really need more agenda items. The town has to give us some more to work on.
If we get a date of when it's going before the board, I'd like maybe to meet once more just prior to that, just so that we're all on the
there's
same
enough
page.
notification.
Right, yeah, absolutely.
There's
Okay.
always.
Did we vote on sending it to the board?
Are we ready to send it to the board?
I think that people are still reading it, that's what
Oh,
I
okay.
think. I think they have questions that have to go to SCD. I think Adam wrote down several that have to be answered.
I mean, I'd like to thoroughly go through the report itself and then also the information.
Right,
That Rick
right.
gave us.
And that's what I would like, and I don't
digest
think I
all
gave
of
you
it
enough time to
together.
read it, to be honest with you. Even though people said they would, I don't think we did. And also, if you have more questions, I think they should go to SCD, and maybe he should be here too, to answer the question.
We can decide, yeah,
Technical
we can
ones.
decide on that if there's a need for them to come on.
Right.
All right.
Okay. So right now, we're not gonna have one. We'll wait for Adam to contact me, and then we'll contact you immediately.
Yep.
But we're looking for something, some more work from the town, and then we'll put Rick's articles on that agenda too.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Sounds fair?
Okay.
Anything else? Is there anything else you'd like on the agenda?
As we talked about, we're gonna get the pricing on the
The
balloon
balloon,
test.
balloon test. Who, will you contact SCD on that or
Everything is done through Adam.
through Adam? Okay.
So that we'll have-
Everything's done through Adam. The town's totally in control of that, and then they feed us the information
Okay.
as they choose to.
I don't know if he knocked down to contact them or not. You know, he was here for the vote, so he should have.
Yeah, so hopefully, if he
I
gets
think
that
he writes
information, we
everything
can
in that
follow.
notebook.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was here.
I wasn't watching what he was writing, so. But I'm
If
sure,
not, I'll mention it to
I'm
him.
sure he'll take care of it.
Okay,
Or if
yeah.
you see him,
I'd
Jeff.
be very interested in seeing what the cost would be.
Yeah, I would be too.
Might want to go into that business.
Yeah. Is there anything
Aside?
else? Then,
Move to adjourn.
do I have a second?
I have a second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Like I'm walking
Thank you for
across the
coming.
hall.